So their solution was, let's shift the center of gravity from America and Europe to China. And so now the world knows, oh, I should trade with China. And China is like, well, okay, my exchange rate is higher than before, therefore I should buy more things from the world. Another idea I want you to understand is that after the 2008 great financial crisis, this created problems in the global economy. And so what happened was transnational capital decided to save the global economy by allowing China to rise. Okay? So this is not known, but one major consequence of the great financial crisis is that transnational capital encouraged China to print money. All right, so I'm going to show you how. But first, let's talk about the main mechanism to allow this to happen. It's called the Bank of International Settlements. Okay, and this is the Bank of International Settlements is in Basel, Switzerland, and it's considered the central bank of central banks. So every nation has a central bank, okay, that determines interest rate. But the BIS is the central bank of central banks, which coordinates all central banks. All right? And it is the most powerful bank in the world. All right. And you think that, okay, this must be public. No, it's not public. It's just run in the best, it's managed for the best interest of powerful people in the world, okay? All right, so this is from the book, Basel, Tower of Basel, okay? Okay, so what this means is this. In his speeches, Hitler promised independence from the global financial order controlled by the British, okay? But you can't really do that because you still have to buy things from other places. But then you're like, I need a bank to lend me money to buy things, but also help me facilitate transactions. Okay, and this is the idea of transnational capital. And transnational capital, they don't really care if you're evil. They don't care. All they care about is how can I make money. So this Bank of International Settlements and transnational capital was helping to fund the Nazi war machine because it was profitable to do so. Okay? And you'll think, okay, after Hitler lost, the Americans would surely know, okay, Bank of International Settlements is evil because they helped the Nazis, therefore we should destroy the Bank of International Settlements, okay? But that's not what happened. After World War II, the Bank of International Settlements became even more powerful, okay? Okay, so the world is run for money, okay? The world exists, these organizations exist in order to facilitate the easy, fluid movement of money around the world and make money God, okay? So after 2008, the Bank of International Settlements had a problem in that the global economy was slowing down. Europe had lost a lot of money, America had lost a lot of money. So their solution was, let's shift the center of gravity from America and Europe to China. And you're like, okay, how do you do that then? You do that with something called the exchange rate. Okay, exchange rate is very simple. Renminbi to USD. Okay? So remember how the interest rate in a national economy, it's a signaling mechanism as to whether or not to increase or decrease liquidity. Well, the exchange rate in the international marketplace is a signaling mechanism to tell other nations whether or not to trade with another nation. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? All right, so let's look at what happened. So for the longest time, the Chinese currency was trading above 8 to the US dollar. Because remember, the US dollar is the main mechanism, of global trade. And then, hey, starting around this time, 2008 guys, it started to increase in value, okay? And so now the world knows, oh, I should trade with China. And China is like, well, okay, my exchange rate is higher than before, therefore I should buy more things from the world, okay? But not only that, but now that I have access to commodities from the world, then I should know I need to promote my economy to use these resources. So I should spend more money on infrastructure. I should build more high-speed railways. I should build airports. Okay? And that's what China did. You see how 2008, just as the American and European economies were suffering, the global economy was suffering, the Chinese economy, China started to have a higher exchange rate, okay? And it kept on going higher and higher. And then what did China do with it? China started to buy stuff from around the world with it. Okay? Again, this is a signaling mechanism where the Bank of International Settlements is saying to the world, you can now sell to China. We will guarantee China. All right? And that's because the Bank of International Settlements needed China to buy more things from the world. And this happened starting around 2008, right? This massive surge in imports. And because all the commodities were coming to China to spend these commodities, so it started to build infrastructure, right? And how did it finance the building of this infrastructure? Bank loans, guys. Bank loans. All right? So this is China. Sorry. This is China, right? Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. This is China. 2008. 2008, basically, China, US, Japan, Europe, their economies were about the same. The bank systems were about the same. But starting about 2008, wow. Look at this. This is all being orchestrated by the Bank of International Settlements, by a few people working behind the scenes. Look at this. Look how crazy this is. All right? So what does this mean? It means that today, China has the largest banks in the world. This is JP Morgan, the largest bank in America. This is Chinese. This is Chinese. This is Chinese. This is Chinese. This is Japanese. Okay? The top 4 banks in the world are Chinese. Why? Because in the bank system, debt liabilities are also assets. Do you understand? All this money the Chinese banks have are just liabilities. Okay? So this is how the system works. It's all just an illusion. The thing about the Chinese system that prevents it from imploding is the fact that all debt in China is localized instead of nationalized. All right, so even though these Chinese banks are heavily in debt, they're in debt in local areas, not national areas. Okay, and all this means is that the Bank of China does not have that much debt relative to, say, the Bank of Japan. Okay, so debt in Japan is nationalized. Debt in China is localized. Okay, so another major consequence of China, the growth of the Chinese banking system is that China started to export its goods around the world more, okay? So as you can see, in the year 2000, America really dominated the world in manufacture export, okay? But by the year 2024, look, it's basically the entire world is buying Chinese exports. All right? And so this is a deliberate strategy of China's national capital to move the center of economic gravity from the United States to China. But the problem with China, the reason why China has not become the hegemon, is that China's not interested in being the hegemon. In other words, military power. Also, as China is expanding its manufacturing capacity to the world, who's upset now? The United States, right? And so what the United States does is it imposes tariffs. Okay? Does it make sense? All right. So, in other words, okay, even though, in theory, the theory is that The goal of the bankers is to maintain the game, okay? That's all they care about. So they want to switch from America to China. But it didn't really work because China doesn't really want to take the responsibility of being the global reserve currency as well as having military bases overseas, all right? So China doesn't want to do this, and America won't let China do this. So your only option now is Israel, okay? And that's why I believe that this war in Iran, what it will do is shift the center of gravity from America to Israel, because Israel wants to be the center of the world, not China. Okay, does that make sense, guys? All right, the other thing you have to understand is that for this to happen though, transnational capital needs to first collapse the American economy. And there are different ways they can do that, right? They can collapse the private credit bubble, they can collapse the AI bubble, they can collapse both at the same time. And why would they want to do that? Because as a banker, as transnational capital, you make your money through activity, right? When people go and do stuff, whether it's entrepreneurship or starting wars, but they have to go do stuff. And right now, America has a lot of problems, okay? So let's look at America's problems. First is aging, where the elite are now older and older. Therefore, they are less active, they are less energetic, they're less entrepreneurial, okay? Then you have something called quantitative easing, which is like too much money in the system. You have too much money in the system, then people do stupid things like gamble, okay? All right? And the last problem with America is you can't win wars. Okay? Like this Iran situation is showing that the American military is not as strong as you think it is. So if you're transnational capital, you see these three things, okay? The population is getting too old. There's too much money around, so people will do stupid things like gambling. And the American military is not that great. Then you're gonna shift your capital from America overseas, okay? But before you do that, what you wanna do is engineer a financial crisis so that you can make as much money as possible, just like the 2008 financial crisis, okay? So we don't know when it will happen, but we can be sure that it will happen. It'll be suddenly, okay? Okay, does that make sense, guys? Now, you're like, wait a minute here. Why would Trump and the Americans allow this to happen? They must know this is coming. And the answer is because it is in the long-term best interest of America for the economy to collapse and for transnational capital to go elsewhere. And this is something we'll discuss next class, okay? What the long-term American strategy is. Transnational capital is leaving America, and the Americans are like, oh my God, Bank of England, City of London, these parasites are leaving? Thank you, get out of here, man, okay? And what will happen is once they leave, America will plot a much brighter future. And it's something we'll discuss next class. But any questions? Yep.
So seems like that America is in a disadvantaged situation, but they know what they are doing and they're just sending parasites outside of their country and having a more long-term benefit. Is that right?
Okay, so this is something we'll discuss next class, okay? But this is not a deliberate strategy. All right, because if you think about it, economic collapse will destroy a lot of wealth in America. It will probably create conditions for civil war in America. It will create a lot of pain. But there are certain people, for example, Donald Trump, who believe that this pain is necessary in order for America to become great again, okay? He said his motto is what? Make America great again? And how do you do that? You get rid of these parasites. But to get rid of parasites, guys, it's a painful process. It's like a cancer, right? Have you guys been through cancer treatment? It's painful. Chemotherapy, they do surgery on you. You have to like eat this, crappy food all the time. It's a painful process, okay? So transnational capital, it's a parasitic force, it's a cancer on the American host. They have to get rid of it, but it's gonna be a very painful process. That's gonna take a long time, years, possibly decades, okay? Yeah, Amber?
Thank you. So if transnational capital is leaving America, then how would you think this shift would impact the global economy, or would it at all?
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, all right, so this is something we'll discuss later on, okay? But let me just show you how the shift happens. All right, so right now you're in America. And the best place for you to shift is Israel, okay? Why? Because you're interested in activity, okay? You're interested in putting your money in a place where it's gonna grow, right? And why is Israel growing? Well, because of the Greater Israel Project, right? They want to conquer the Middle East, but then it has to rebuild, right? After the war, rebuilding. And then what it's going to do is become the hub of global trade, right? Because Israel controls Africa. And this is something we'll discuss next class, okay? So this is why you want to invest in Israel, for these three reasons. Why? Because they're going to keep on fighting wars to achieve the Greater Israel Project. Wars are profitable. Wars are the most profitable enterprise in the world, okay? Second is that they have to rebuild after all this destruction. So they need capital. And the third is they will control global trade because of the location, okay? So this is why Israel is a smart investment for transnational capital. I'm not talking about like us, okay, with like $1,000. I'm talking like trillions of dollars will probably go into Israel. All right, so to leave America, what you want is a stock market collapse, okay? An economic collapse. Why? Because economic collapse not only allows you to leave with as much money as possible, but also allows you to buy up distressed assets. And when I mean distressed assets, I mean resources, which include water, oil, okay? So you want to create as much damage as possible because then it's easier for you to buy up these resources. And okay, does that make sense? All right? So these guys plan decades ahead. But transnational capital, what they do is they're trying to create as much chaos as possible because in chaos, there's profit. Like if everyone's sitting around doing nothing, you can't make any money, okay? But if people are fighting each other, if there's blood on the streets, you can make a lot of money, all right? Does it make sense? Yeah. Okay. Any more questions, guys? Okay, so we'll talk about what happens after this financial shift next class.